Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 10 of MBA 590 Digital Marketing. At this point, you should have just actually probably gotten an email from me about what's going on this week, but to reiterate a little bit. Obviously, I'm meeting with all the teams. Got two teams left to meet with. That'll happen tonight. But overall, I've been really impressed as how the team projects have come along. I'm excited to see where they're going and see what you're kind of recommending for the near future. Um, of course, on the team project, the big thing that's coming up next is the tactics and implementation section that's due a week from today, right, by 11:55 p.m. And yeah, got to put that up so that I have the assignment. I'll make a quick note of that. Okay. Um, but anyway, so that will be up shortly. You'll be able to see it, and it'll be there for you to send in. I'm going to spend some time today talking about that, but I want to talk briefly about the other things that are going on this week. So the user experience slides should be up already, and I hope to make the web development slides available in the near future as well. So you should be able to see those quickly. In addition, I'm going to do a couple of short tutorials to kind of show you a couple of tools out there that you might want to use when creating your creative content. Some wireframing tools, some diagramming tools, and maybe some and some website and social media tools as well, right? So I'll these videos won't be very long because I think the best way to learn these tools is actually play around with them themselves. But I'm going to give you enough that you can kind of do a little bit with them, and then I'll let you go crazy with them and explore them a little bit, lot more. Okay, um, so that you'll see coming up over the course of the next week as well. The other things going on since the last time I talked to you, right? Well, first of all, I posted all the situation analysis grades, and I posted the averages for every grade we've had in the class so far. Some of you obviously some people have expressed concerns about their grades. Other people are super happy with them. But I want to be aware that, as I mentioned during many of the group meetings, this is the first time the class has been taught in this format. So I am going to probably wind up curving the class. So rather than thinking about how well you're doing in terms of absolute points, think more about how you're doing relative to the averages. That gives you a better idea of what your final grades will be in the class. Um, Other things coming up, the midterm the mid course evaluation, we're a little past the midpoint, but close enough. Was up. Feel free to fill that out. I definitely am taking advantage of looking at those comments to see how I can even change the course in the middle of the course, right, to try and address some of your concerns. So if you have anything, or if you think I'm doing some things great, let me know. I heard that a lot of people, for instance, really like the short video segment, so I'm going to try and keep that the same way going forward. So yeah, so those things are all available. The other things that are going on. So there is a reading that I'm about to post on kind of related to user experience, since that's the topic for the week, basically. And specifically, it's in the context of how user experience in different online video platforms like Facebook Live versus YouTube, how that really plays out, and what effect that has on the overall brand engagement with those different experiences, right? So that will be up there, and I'll put up a set of questions as well to go along with that and to consider. Okay, so I think that's everything that I really need to address. I'm going to now switch streams a little bit, and literally switch the streaming of this video to discussing the team project in a little bit more detail, specifically the tactics and implementation section, since that's coming up next. So let me bring that up on a window. Okay. Acrobat Pro. Okay, so you should see it now. I will try and make it a little bigger for you. Let me mute my own capture. Oh, not that one, this one. And there we go. Okay. So let's scroll down. So we're working on the tactics and implementation section, as I mentioned. right? So just turn the situation else. Okay. Okay. So this section is primarily going to address the tactics that you're going to use. And at the very beginning, it asks you to restate the goal. That's basically because I'm assuming you're not going to turn the situation analysis back to me, right? So I just want to remember what the goals were, that you had set out for yourself, so I can figure out how the tactics you're suggesting support those goals. Um, and the next thing you're going to see is just a bunch of questions about different tactics and things that you need to consider when examining those tactics. I don't expect you to use every single one of these tactics, right? So, for instance, if you're not going to use podcasts, don't mention podcasts. If you're going to suggest that really their website is fine, but they need to beef up their social media content, that's fine, right? But what I want to see is I want to see you really detail about 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, somewhere in that range, tactics that you really think are important for the company to pursue. Now, those tactics should support the marketing goals that you've laid out ahead before this, right? And it's not a one-to-one match, right? You can have one tactic that is going to support multiple goals, and you can have one goal that is supported by multiple tactics, right? So definitely consider that as you're going through it, right? So let's see. So that being said, right, there are some suggestions. So there's a suggestion about, how are you going to communicate, email, links, right, social media. What would the domain name of the website, if it doesn't have one, or if you want to change it, what would that look like? The search engine marketing strategy, and this is a strategy that works for almost all the companies. So whether, especially search engine optimization, not necessarily search advertising, because some of them don't have the money for it. And one question that came up during the group that always comes up is, it asks you when you're describing, if you're going to use search engine, to think about 20 keyword phrases you would want to optimize for. And they ask you that again for the search advertising aspect, right? And people have asked, well, wouldn't those be the same 20 words, right? And the truth is that in some cases, there's going to be a lot of overlap between them, but some of them are going to be different. So, for instance, one of the teams is working with the NC State women's basketball team, right? And I give the example that for search engine optimization, you might want to have a page that's optimized around the words, women's basketball statistics, right? Statistics about the team, or team statistics, right? That would be important to be in the search engine optimization keyword phrase list, but that's probably not a phrase you're going to pay for advertising, right? The pay for advertising ones are going to be more like NCSU women's basketball tickets or something like that, right? And so there are some distinctions, right? There are also some that maybe you don't have on your pages anywhere, but you would pay for advertising for. So, for instance, NC State 2-for-1 ticket offer, right? That's probably not something you're going to do an optimization of your search engine. You're not going to do search engine optimization for your website consistently over a long period of time, but you may pay for an ad with those words in it for a brief period of time. Right? So think about that. Think about how those relate. Right? Email is pretty straightforward. Kind of think about what your email is going to look like. If you're not planning to support offline advertising, if your offline advertising is not related to your digital marketing, you don't need to mention it, right? If they're completely separate, then don't worry about it, right? Reciprocal links are something you want to pursue, but you don't need a formal agreement necessarily, so don't worry too much about that. If you want to include like an email that you would send to another firm indicating that you want to do a reciprocal linking with them, then that would be fine. But you don't have to do like a formal agreement at all for that. Social media, obviously, as an example, I would definitely say that you could spend a lot of time here talking about different channels. Podcasts, I mentioned already, you may or may not use them. How are you going to foster loyalty? Right, this is important to think about, especially if you're doing any kind of website redesign, but also important for social media. Like, what's going to draw people back to the social media content? What's going to keep them from leaving the social media channel that you're advertising on? Sales promotion, public relations, that's all pretty straightforward. If you are planning to pursue a big public relations strategy, I would like to see some examples of that as part of your creative content that you've generated. If you're not going to host ads on your own website, then don't have to talk about it. If you are going to host it, you should probably justify why and kind of look into it. Next, we look at price, right? So some of these areas aren't as important for a lot of the firms, especially a lot of the firms that we're talking about in this class are pretty well established. There's a couple of startup firms, right? But many of them are pretty well established. So if that's the case, you don't have to discuss price too much, right? However, if you're suggesting they change the price of the product, or if you're suggesting that they offer deep discounts, I think you need at least enough of discussion of price to justify those claims. The final section is this implementation and control section, right? Think about what the KPIs are that you're going to use to measure whether or not you're successful. And also, one thing that people consistently mess up on this is make sure that you have a backup plan, like what to do if your KPIs aren't being met, and at least have thought through that to some extent. This is really kind of the assignability question in the SMART goals, so you might also think about who would be in charge of these different tactics that you're suggesting, right? So overall, this section, I really want to see, somewhere around half a dozen tactics. It could be a lot less than that. It could be quite a few more than that, right? That support the marketing goals that you've laid out. And that's really the goal of this section. So hopefully you will have discussed that successfully throughout the section. Due March 29th, as I mentioned, at 11:55 p.m. Okay? So just to recap, now let me switch back on my camera. So just to recap, right? This week, primarily you're meeting with me to discuss your group projects. Starting tomorrow, and for the next week, we'll be looking at user experience and website development, and the videos for that have started to be put up already. There is a reading that is up right now, or will be up shortly, sorry, on user experience and streaming video. So take a look at that, respond to any questions you might have on that aspect of it. And don't forget to get your tactics implementation done by next Wednesday at 11:55 p.m. So I think that's it for now. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out and email me. Take care.